But thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the food traceability rule. My job is to bore you about it. There will be a boredom check at the end. So if I don't bore you appropriately, then I haven't succeeded. All right. I can't say that this is invigorating, information, but I'll try to make it as important as it is because it is important. How many of you have heard about the food traceability rule and are aware of its presence in our world? Right? It is coming. We do have a food traceability rule that we all will have to comply with by 2026. Is that better? I'll try to hold it as close as possible. Anyway, so we have been working, PFG has been working, there's a team on this. We've been working since 2022 when the rule was first enacted to become compliant. It's taking a team and it's going to take a good amount of time for us to get compliant. I guarantee you next year at Foodcentric, I think it's in DC, I will probably be giving another presentation that will show you more specifically how our systems will help you. So this is kind of a prelude to what we will have ready for you by 2026, okay? Because it's a process for sure. So today I'm going to give a general overview of the rule just to kind of tell you what it is, why it happened, what it means to us. I'll talk about traceability at PFG today. Traceability is not new for us. We do traceability all the time, every day, every week. We're doing some level of traceability. It may not be for a foodborne illness outbreak. It may be for a quality issue or some customer concern, but we're doing traceability all the time. I spoke at a National Restaurant Association meeting a couple of years ago in New Orleans. Some of you might have been there. And I gave the same message. This is not new. It is a new federal rule, but we do traceability all the time, and I'll talk about that a little bit. I'll talk about our path to compliance. FDA has given us very specific guidelines that we have to meet by 2026. We already do a lot of what they want. So we already do a lot of it. And there's a few things that actually helped us, I think, from the rule, and I'll talk about that. We have just signed a service agreement with Trustwell. How many of you know who Trustwell is? How many of you know who Food Logic is? Have you heard of Food Logic? So Trustwell is the parent company for Food Logic. So we signed a service agreement with them last week or the week before last. They are going to be our primary system to collect data, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And we will talk about customer compliance. You have an obligation as a part of this rule. Remember, this rule is primarily about tracing back after there has been a foodborne illness. So it's not about tracing forward during a recall, which we do all the time, but it's about tracing back when we've had illnesses that have occurred, and specifically illnesses across multiple states that FDA is involved in. So we'll talk about that, and then I've got a timer in my pocket wherever my phone is, so we'll have a little bit of time at the end for questions and answers. So that sets us up. So I'll give us an overview of the rule. So the rule was enacted in November of 2022. That's the food traceability rule. The food traceability rule is a part of the Food Safety Modernization Act. How many of you have heard of the Food Safety Modernization Act? You also hear it called FSMA. That's the acronym. You'll hear it called FSMA. Sometimes this rule, the food traceability rule, gets called FSMA 204. But it's really the food traceability rule. FSMA was enacted in 2011, and there were multiple rules that came out of FSMA. So there was a produce rule that FDA enacted. There was a preventative controls rule that was enacted under FSMA. There was a foreign supplier verification program rule. And then they were supposed to do a traceability rule, but they were very slow to get that rule written, and a group in California actually sued FDA because they had not written the rule. This was in 2018. So when that lawsuit came up, FDA, they got their act together and they wrote the rule. They started writing it in 2018. The lawsuit was FDA. They were not. I don't know what's the rule, Brent. What's the word I'm looking for? So FDA, they were sued, but it was dismissed. Sorry, I'm talking to my boss. He's our general counsel. But FDA did write the rule after the lawsuit happened in 2018. It was enacted in 2022, and it fulfills their obligation for anybody who processes food, stores food. We store food. We actually manufacture food too. We have food manufacturing facilities. And if you are serving food, you're a part of this rule too. And it applies strictly to high-risk foods. And we all know what those foods are, right? So romaine lettuce is a high-risk food, right? So when we'll show you the list of the food traceability items that apply to the rule. And it requires PFG to maintain these records. So we have to receive key data elements from our suppliers and maintain those key data elements. We are currently doing that today. We don't have a magic system where there's a one button to press to get it all. That's what we're working for. That will be the 2026 goal for us. But it only applies to foods that are on the food traceability list, and these are those foods. So when you look at this list, you see cheese, you see eggs, nut butters, peanut butters, almond butters, cashew butters, those types of things, fresh sprouts, fresh herbs. There's a whole list of seafood items there. Deli salads, potato salads, coleslaw, chicken salad, ham salad, pimento cheese, those kind of things fall into the prepared deli salads. The bottom row is all of your produce. It's a very produce-heavy rule. So your fresh melons, fresh peppers, fresh cucumbers, tomatoes, tropical tree fruits, and anything that's prepared with any of these ingredients, you have to have the key data elements. How many of you serve these items at your restaurants, right? I mean, we all do. And if anything has anything on this list as an ingredient, if there's no kill step, you have to maintain the key data elements. You have to receive those from your manufacturer or your distributor. And that's what we're working diligently to do. Like I said, we've got a team that's working on this project. So here's some more about the rule. So it does not apply to restaurants unless you are a commissary. And when I say it doesn't apply, it means you don't have to assign traceability lot codes. So a part of the rule is if you manufacture food, you have to assign a traceability lot code to it. As a restaurant operator, you are not required to do that as a part of this rule, unless you are making food that you're further distributing to other locations. I know some grocery store chains do that, so that would make you required to formulate a traceability lot code. PFG, we in our storage and distribution facilities, we only receive food and ship food. Those are our two critical tracking events that are part of the rule. So because we're only receiving and shipping, we will not be assigning traceability lot codes. The traceability lot codes we will be receiving from the manufacturer. Does that make sense? We would receive that traceability lot code. We would store that traceability lot code in the TrustWell system, and then we would transmit that traceability lot code to you as a customer as you need it. All subsequent entities in the supply chain will then need to link those KDEs to any record. So all of that data just keeps being transferred from the manufacturer to the distributor number one, distributor number two. If there's 3 distributors, it has to go all the way through the supply chain and then ultimately out to the customer who serves the product. Number 3, the FDA did us a big favor, I think. They gave us 24 hours to provide these key data elements to them in the event of an outbreak that they're investigating. So PFG is able to meet that 24-hour time frame. We participate in traceback activities today. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. But that 24-hour rule is what FDA expects. So if FDA shows up at your restaurant and says, hey, there's been an illness, we need to investigate these items. Usually they come with a list of items. It's tomatoes, lettuce, and onions. We need to know where your tomatoes, lettuce, and onions came for this time period. Usually it's weeks or months that they expect the data. And then again, the compliance date is 2026. So PFG is doing trace forward activities every single week. Trace forward is a recall. So it can be a recall, it can be a product withdrawal, it can be an on hold for a customer for a quality issue. There's my Dr. Pepper tastes like root beer. We've had that happen recently. That's not a food safety event, it's a quality event, but we still want to track where that product is, where it's been shipped, so that we can stop shipping it, and you guys will stop serving it. We do 2 per week. We require that our warehouses respond up to the corporate team in 3 hours when we send out an alert. So in our supplier agreements, suppliers are supposed to contact corporate, which is my team, about a trace forward event. And then we enact our trace forward protocols and communications to make sure that, did we receive the product? Do we still have the product? Have we shipped the product? So that's a trace forward activity. There's always regulatory involvement if it is a regulatory registered event, and we always participate in those effectiveness checks. And we've never had any issues with our current systems. We also participate in trace back issues, but at a much lower frequency. We only do about 4 a year of trace back. So that's good. That means we're not involved with a lot of foodborne illness outbreaks. But when we get those usually come from you. So someone's been sick, they've said, I've eaten at Mama Joe's restaurant. I'm making that up, that's not real. I got sick at Mama Joe's, right? Because it's always the last place you ate where you think you got sick. So the investigators go to Mama Joe's, they say, hey, these people ate at your restaurant, they had this and that and this. What are all of your ingredients? You tell them the ingredients. You say, where do you get the ingredients? They ask you that. And you say, oh, I order from Performance Food Group. And then that's how we get involved. And we have always held ourselves accountable to get the data back to the inspectors within 24 hours, even before this rule was written. Because we want to get them the data and get them gone, right? You don't want them at your restaurants. We don't want them bothering you. We don't want them bothering us. We want them to move on. So we try to get them the data as quickly as we can. We do get it to them in 24 hours. It is not pretty for us. When we are doing a trace back, it becomes a lot of after hours work, a lot of people involved. But I have confidence that we do meet the 24 hours, but I also am very, very happy and hopeful that this is going to make it easier for us since we're partnering with Trustwell. There's no traceback activity from the inspectors, so we never hear back from them. When we give them the data, they never come back and say, yay, good job, we love you. We never hear that. And I actually told FDA that in July. We had a meeting with them in Richmond, and I told them, you guys never give us feedback. We don't know how well we did. And they said, well, we'll see what we can do. And yeah, they left, right? So here is our path of compliance. So we've done a lot of collaboration. We've done a lot of work out of the gate with the International Food Distributors Association. That's a group of all food distributors in the country. If you go to the IFTA website, there are documents about the food traceability rule, specific for suppliers, specific for customers. I encourage you to go to that website and look for the customer documents. The National Restaurant Association has put out some great materials on the food traceability rules, so go there. We're collaborating with anybody we can. This is a federal regulation. It is not a competitive advantage, so everybody has to comply. And in fact, if everybody complies at the same level in the same ways, then it makes us all better, right? We've evaluated our systems. We've spent a lot of time doing that. That's where IT comes in. This is really a heavy IT project. We've got lots of warehouse management systems that bring in the data. We've got to figure out how to bring it in successfully, and we've done all the evaluation for that. We initiated a traceability task force. I mentioned that. There's probably 30 people on that task force out of corporate. We have calls every single week about progress on the rule. So there's a lot of focus up to the highest level in the organization on initiating and making sure that we're compliant. Again, we've partnered with Trustwell. We're very excited about that. They've been a leader in the data sharing industry for decades at this point, and we feel like they will provide us, great service in receiving the KDEs from our suppliers, storing them, and then sharing them with you all as customers, however you decide. We're going through a proof of concept. We're going to do some testing here in Tennessee in the next couple of months. We will start onboarding our suppliers very soon. With Trustwell, we've actually sent a communication out to our suppliers. It was the week before last with our expectations. We've told them, hey, this is what we expect from you. This is what we need you to share with us. We've given them some deadlines. So we've started engaging with our suppliers, and they will be onboarding. And then we'll run some pilot tests, and then we hopefully will be fully compliant, meaning that we are receiving data from all of our suppliers on the food traceability list, and that we have the capability to share that data with customers as you want to receive it by October 2025. That's our goal. It may happen a little bit early, so that's what I'm hopeful for. But October 2025 is the date that we've set. So again, Trustwell, we're setting up the methodologies to receive the data. Again, we receive this data in a lot of different ways. We receive electronic data. We receive paper data, right? Like you guys receive. So we're trying to figure out how to make it more of an electronic process. This cartoon here just is a schematic of how they are helping us with the project. So we've got a lot of work with Trustwell coming up in the next few weeks and months leading up to compliance. And there'll be more communications about Trustwell to our supplier base. And then once we start working on customer sharing, then we'll start sharing information with customers as it's applicable. So then that brings me to the customer part. What do you need to do? So I worked 15 years with restaurant companies. So I've been in your shoes. I know how restaurants, how busy they are. I know receiving data is tough. So just know that we have your back and we will have the data if you need it. Okay? We are setting up our systems so that you should have confidence that if something happens at your restaurant that you don't want to happen, then we're here to help you through it. It's never fun, but listen, we have dealt with plenty of customers who have had outbreaks that we help them through it. So we will receive the key data elements for all of those items on the food traceability list. We will store it and we will share it with you one of the 3 ways listed there in the center of the slide. So we can set you up on a continuous feed. If you have a system to receive key data elements, we can set you up where you will receive that the key data elements on a continuous feed if you choose to do that. A lot of big national brands that have very sophisticated systems will choose that path, and they will just deliver it direct to their corporate. So that's one choice. We will have a customer portal. So if you have an inspector that says, hey, I need the key data elements for these items for these weeks, you will be able to go into that portal and retrieve the data as you need it. Or number 3, if you want us to give it to you, we will give it to you. That's how we currently do it now. So when there is an illness investigation going on, then a customer contacts us, we pull the data, we share the data with the customer. And a lot of times the customer backs off and just lets the inspectors request the data from us, and we share the data directly with the inspectors. So those are your choices. This time next year, we'll show you these choices. We're building it right now. Okay? And we just want you to have the choices that you think work best for your business. So FDA has said you need to provide it to them within 24 hours. If you have an inspector that says, I need this within 24 hours, we will promise to get it to you within 24 hours. We do that now. And we'll do some tests on the transmission of data. So once we're able to transmit data through TrustWell, we'll set that up and we'll test it to make sure it works. We'll test it on a set frequency for sure. I'm sure the regulators will require us to make those kind of assessments on a set basis. So that is an overview of the rule. That is where we stand. Are you bored? I told you I was going to check. Thrilling stuff, right? Again, we do traceability every single week, trace forward. We don't do trace back as often, and thank goodness we don't. But if we have to, we can with our current systems, but we know with our partnership that we're starting, it's going to be better for us. And we just want you to know that we never want you to have to deal with a foodborne illness outbreak. We never want that. And it's our goal to make sure we're shipping you safe food and that you are serving safe food. But in those events, because it's the real world, right, we are here when it happens. So any questions? Any questions on the rule? Any questions on what you'll need? I guarantee you I will be back next year and we will be doing a demo of what we have. This is just the setup for it. So come back next year and you'll see what we've built.